By the 5th century BC, the concept of the theatre was already well established in Greek society. Perhaps having its origins in the Dionysian ecstasy of the open-air ceremonies of previous eras. The now formalised phenomenon took Greece by storm. For a society already obsessed with its own past, as well as telling a great story, the best plays allowed ordinary citizens not only to grapple with the deeper meanings of existence, but to come into contact with their ancestors. Though most Greek plays are lost, the greatest of those that do survive come from Athens. Golden Age masterpieces by the likes of Aeschylus and Euripides. Of all the great plays of that vaunted age, a set of 3 in particular shine out brightly among the most enduring and timeless tales ever told. Penned by the playwright Sophocles, first performed during the 5th century BC in Athens, they concerned one of the other Greek states, a source of endless fascination for its neighbours. A story to rival even that of the Trojan War, about a people who had always gone their own way. And as far as the rest of the Greek world was concerned, stood among the oldest and most illustrious of all, located in Boeotia to the west of Athens, the city of Thebes. The 3 Theban plays written by Sophocles, concerning the fated and often cursed Theban royal family of the heroic age, remain some of the most studied, watched and read plays in all of history. Inspiration for Shakespeare and Sigmund Freud alike. Most famous of all being the tale of Oedipus, primordial Theban king who infamously fulfilled his own grim prophecy by unknowingly killing his own father and marrying his mother without knowing either of their identities. His cursed sons going on to carry forth the grim tidings into the war-blighted next generation. It is a great story, which has in turn inspired so many others down the millennia. And, of course, over the last century, archaeology has demonstrated the idea of the immense antiquity of Thebes to be more than just a myth. In addition to extensive Mycenaean remains from the same age Oedipus was thought to have lived, ancient walls and a town from the 3rd millennium BC have been unearthed. 1,000 years even before the Age of Heroes. Unlike most Mycenaean centres, Thebes has the distinction and added difficulty of having been continuously occupied all throughout recorded history. Digging can only be carried out here when construction work is taking place. Therefore, only tantalisingly brief pictures can be gained of the city in its Bronze Age glory. And yet, Thebes has changed a lot in the last 100 years, and a good deal of archaeology has thus been undertaken. The first to do so was a Greek, a pioneer in the new field. Between 1906 and 1929, over the course of many seasons, Antonius Karamapoulos, revealing one of the most astonishing building complexes ever seen from the Mycenaean age. At the very centre of the ancient acropolis of the city. Largely obscured now unless viewed from the air, yet impregnable in the classical world. A mighty megaron stood, surrounded by a palatial complex complete with Cyclopean masonry. The large multi-storey complex, tentatively dated to the 13th century BC in its final form, contained dozens of rooms, decorated with majestic frescoes, linked up by corridors, designed for storage and the manufacturing of luxury goods, as well as significant evidence of literacy and international ties. In honour of the mythological founder of the city, Cadmus, with classic early 20th century flair, Karamapoulos could only have named the so-called palace the Cadmeia. The historic name for the previously lost Theban citadel, which had once been famous. Persisting all through the classical age, as a hallowed site that no one was allowed to build on, until its final destruction by Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC. This total descent into oblivion, when the city was razed to the ground, its citizens killed or sold into slavery, only adding to the allure of Thebes. Though difficult to arrive at a complete picture of the site due to the urban sprawl of the flourishing modern town centre, the artisan workshop of the Cadmeia, revealed by Karamapoulos and subsequent excavators, didn't just produce fine items and jewellery of gold, agate, quartz and lapis lazuli, among other precious materials from the other side of the world, but stored materials and items including locally produced products, as well as others imported from Iran and Bactria towards the far eastern fringe of the trade networks of the Mesopotamian powers. A fascinating insight into the interconnectedness of at least the elites at a prosperous Mycenaean palace centre well outside the Argolid. A situation which makes Cadmus's supposed origin as a Phoenician not so wild after all, at least in geographical terms. The land of Canaan only being a single boat trip away. Let alone the trek across vast swathes of deserts and mountains to reach the far edge of the Bronze Age world. The so-called treasure room of the Cadmeia is arguably even more impressive, demonstrating direct diplomatic links with the great powers of the Near East. Located at the northeastern corner of the complex, the treasury was built using colossal stone blocks some 2.5 meters high. It contained large amounts of gold, silver, other precious materials, as well as a hoard of imported cylinder seals, from Assyria, the Hurrian kingdoms, Cyprus, and the Hittite Empire. Separated from the treasure room by a mighty wall, we also have the so-called Room with the Jars. Named for the extensive amount of clay jars located there. No doubt filled with tribute and trade goods from the hinterlands of the Theban kingdom, as well as abroad. Within both chambers, a large number of Linear B tablets were found, suggesting a significant portion of the palatial administration to have been run from this part of the complex. It is on the eastern edge of the Acropolis that we get a glimpse into the might of Oedipian Thebes. For here was the armory. A large rectangular chamber along with numerous smaller rooms, linked up by a network of narrow corridors. Its purpose, the production of weapons for the Mycenaean army, as well as bronze tools for the palace artisans and craftspeople. The westernmost area of the excavated remains was reserved for the so-called wool workshop, consisting of 3 rooms containing various arrays of pottery, vases, and stirrup jars. Decorated with beautiful, colourful frescoes, the workshop was used for the washing and storage of wool, which would typically be processed with aromatic oils to be delivered to recipients both inside Thebes and across the other Mycenaean palaces. Finally, at the summit of the Acropolis was a large and densely built building complex overlooking the rest of the city. Judging by its size and its premium location, as well as the extensive and colourful decorations such as painted frescoes, this is the area thought to have housed the Cadmean ruling class. Clearly, even from the partial picture that has so far been found, Thebes stood among the wealthiest and most powerful of the Mycenaean states. Perhaps only surpassed by Mycenae itself. And yet, its palace has not definitively been found. No hearths or throne rooms surrounded by pillared halls, like those at Pylos and Tiryns, having been located thus far at the Cadmea. Suggesting the real glory and centre of the city to remain hidden under pavements and modern streetways. And of course, Thebes was not alone in its region. Boeotia has always been home to multiple, significant and often competing polities. During the heyday of Thebes, the other foremost power stood to the west. Orchomenos, perennial enemy to the Theban kings. Smaller and closer, however, was Eutresis, where the remnants of Cyclopean walls still sprawl. Along with other centres like Thisbe and Elion. Probably swallowed by the Theban state during its expansion and turned to satellite centres, the same as with Pylos and Mycenae. Excavated during the first decades of the 20th century by pioneering female archaeologist Hetty Goldman, and later by John Caskey, leader of the American School in Athens, the magnificent artefacts uncovered from Eutresis are now kept in the Thebes Museum, demonstrating the great wealth of this region in the Late Bronze Age. And Utresis' very probable status in the region as second only to Thebes. Today, little more than a low mound amidst great swathes of farmland. History has not been kind to Utresis. Its once impressive Cyclopean defences, visible only 100 years ago in Goldman's day, taken away piece by piece in the years since by stone-hungry locals. Its citadel, unkempt and unstable. The surrounding structures of the town, largely indistinguishable from the surrounding fields. If you weren't looking, you wouldn't know it was man-made, let alone one of the great towns of the Bronze Age Aegean. The situation is similar at the small town of Thebes to the west. A centre of industry and farming today. On the tourist trail, this is not. Thebes was, however, mentioned in the Iliad, just as it was featured in Michael Wood's In Search of the Trojan War in the 1980s. The epic poem and epic TV show alike, speaking of its many pigeons, which are still there today. And of course, the mighty citadel that looms over the town. A medieval fortress in the last millennium, but underneath it is studded with the clear edifices of the Bronze Age. Unlike Utresis, Thebes stands on a rocky crag, so was never useful enough to be destroyed by agriculture. Its elevated and steep position also protecting it from stone robbers, keeping it safe for potential future excavation. Until then, its secrets remain hidden. Not too far away to the south, yet more ruins sprawl around the ancient entrance to the realm of Thebes. Here, at Plataea, where classical walls stretch and temples loom, a great victory was won against the Persians in 479 BC, throwing them out once and for all from the Greek mainland. But long before then, this place was already important. Its central stronghold citadel amidst green fields, having Mycenaean foundations. Yet another settlement, like Utresis and Thebes, largely forgotten today, stands nearby at Arma. Amidst classical remains, the Eleon Acropolis has confirmed Mycenaean evidence too, and is still an immensely impressive site, where small-scale excavations are beginning to be carried out. But where did all the wealth of this Theban kingdom come from? Well, like the other Mycenaean kingdoms, Thebes had access to the sea. A number of potential port sites have been located. Places like Anthedon, Larimna, and Skropaneri, all showing clear indications of Mycenaean settlement, with fragments of Cyclopean fortifications even being found. though it remains unclear whether Orchomenos or Thebes or another power ruled over these sites. Places like this are almost certainly where the elite grave goods of the palatial centres were channelled. Some of them preliminarily investigated. We can imagine the wealth coming into these locations from far away. In mythology, the region around Thebes had originally been inhabited by tribes known as the Ectenes and the Hyantes, ruled over by a great king named Ogyges. In the wake of the king's death, an Achaean contingent arrived in the region, led by the Phoenician warlord Cadmus. Like so many before it and after, an origin story that may well have no truth in it whatsoever. Very much in the same tradition that other Greek progenitors like Pelops and Danaus stemmed from Asia Minor and Egypt respectively. Canaanite or not, Cadmus and his force defeated and expelled the Ectenes. Cadmus erected a citadel soon after, which he named after himself. The city which grew up around the Cadmea being named apparently in honour of Zeus's consort, Thebe. In a myth that can eerily be somewhat matched to the archaeology, the city proper wasn't founded until the joint rulers Amphion and Zethus constructed the Theban walls in a future generation. According to the archaeology thus far carried out, Bronze Age Thebes arose to glory several centuries after Mycenae, generally considered the wellspring of Mycenaean culture. By the 16th century BC, early Mycenaean cemeteries were built on the surrounding hills of Agnia Anna Kolonaki, Castellion and Ismenios. Though the palace centre on the Cadmean Acropolis itself doesn't seem to have been constructed until around 2 centuries later, by which time Thebes became one of the largest palaces of all, important enough to be mentioned independently in inscriptions from Pharaonic Egypt. One of the most impressive of all monuments at Bronze Age Thebes, as usual, is the imposing chamber tomb built on the nearby Castellion Hill. Created by merging together 2 existing burial chambers into an impressive tomb, linked by a main passage 25 metres long. According to Pausanias, it had been built for the legendary Theban kings Eteocles and Polynices, the sons of the cursed Oedipus. According to the stories regaled in Athenian theatres, and before that the halls of archaic kings. After the grim truth of Oedipus's tale was revealed, he was blinded and exiled from the city. But not before he cursed his sons to die by each other's hand. The 2 brothers attempted to avoid the curse of their father by agreeing to switch who was on the throne each year. However, predictably, as Eteocles' first year came to an end, he refused to step down, instead expelling his brother from the kingdom. Travelling south to Argos, Polynices gathered support from the leaders of the Argives. thus invoking one of the most famous conflicts of ancient Greece, the War of the Seven against Thebes. Perhaps the most famous tale before the Trojan War, though one that unfortunately is lost today. In the ensuing carnage, all 7 Argive leaders were killed, as well as both Polynices and Eteocles, who died by each other's hand, just as Oedipus had forsworn. And the chaos wasn't over yet. In a fresh bout of intergenerational violence, the war would be resumed by the children of the 7 slain Argives, marching to the Cadmea amidst the fury of vengeance. This new group of Argive champions, the Epigoni, numbering Diomedes of Tiryns among their ranks, proved more successful than their predecessors, ultimately overcoming the Theban defences and slaying the new ruler of the Cadmea, Laodamas, son of Eteocles. Just possibly in a half-remembered real situation of politicking manoeuvring by the rulers of the Argolid, they placed Polynices' son, Thersander, on the throne. Years later, when the Thebans joined the Confederacy heading to the Trojan War, it was this same Thersander, apparently still friendly to Mycenae, whether a puppet ruler or not, who led them, contributing no less than 50 ships. Just like countless other heroes who set out to take war to Ilion, he would never return home. By that time, at the twilight of the Mycenaean Age, just as it would for centuries to come, war again raged between Thebes and its greatest enemy of all. If you enjoyed this brief exploration into the Mycenaean world, here's another 6.5 hours I made earlier, covering the entire rise and fall of that most ancient of Greek civilizations. Just click the link here and it'll take you to my main channel, History Time. Thanks, and see you next time.